Hey girlies, just a quick reminder before we dive into today's episode. The information shared on this podcast is intended to be general sports nutrition advice and education related to period recovery for female athletes. This is not specific to any one individual, and it may or may not apply to your situation. If you are looking for personalized guidance, be sure to apply to our RBSN Period Recovery Nutrition Coaching Program. Our 4-month period recovery program is designed to help you sustainably get your period back and keep it. You can apply now to get started in our program, and we'll leave the link for the program below. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. Hello and welcome back. This is the Eat More Carbs Podcast. We're RBSN and we're a team of dietitians and we talk every Thursday about sports nutrition for the girlies. If you're new to the podcast, welcome. We're so excited to have you here. I'm Jenna and I'm the host of the Eat More Carbs Podcast. And I also work as a dietitian with our endurance athletes at RBSN.
And I'm Reilly. You'll see me on here as well. I am the founder of RBSN and I specialize in working with our team sport athletes.
On today's episode, we're talking about signs your period recovery plan is not working. Before we get into today's episode, Reilly and I are going to share our high and low. So sharing just a little bit about our week, the good and the parts we wish had gone a little bit differently. Reilly, as always, can you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm going to start off with my low. I usually start off with my high, but I'm going to start off with the low this week. If you are new to the Eat More Carbs Podcast or if you're new to RBSN, I have a 20-month-old daughter. Her name is Charlie. The low has to do with her, but it's not about her. She's great. I love her so much. She's a sassy, independent woman already. I love that. Recently, I was actually at Kohl's looking for some clothes because you have a kid or if you've been around kids, they grow like crazy. We're flying through clothes. I was just looking for some pants, looking kind of for everything, but looking for some pants since it's getting a little bit colder. I was really struggling trying to find pants for Charlie because all of the girls' clothes were tight pants. The only clothes available were tight jeans, tight leggings, and a lot of the pants that were more utility, right? That were thicker were boys' pants and they were wider, they had pockets. And I really struggled with this because all of the girls' clothes were form-fitting and all the little boys' clothes were I guess a little bit more practical. So now Charlie has a bunch of boys' pants. I just felt it was kind of disheartening that even at a young age, we're already grouping form-fitting clothes for girls and then not for boys.
Not to mention the fact that it's already hard to shop as females. We're starting that at such a young age. It's really interesting because we don't discuss our high and low before we record these, but mine is kind of similar to this. So I'm very, very interesting that you brought up shopping and pants specifically.
Yeah. And I don't know if I explained it correctly, but it just was really interesting to me because I even went back and looked at more of the girls' clothes because I was maybe I missed something because I was dang, they don't really have any pants. And then we walked a little bit farther away and I saw that there were pants, jeans and just pants. I was wait, these are boys' pants. And I was nobody's gonna know. I just think it was I don't know. It was just weird to me.
I don't have kids to shop for in that sense, but I can imagine that I would probably feel similarly.
Yeah. My high though actually is a huge shout out to one of our mutual friends. I'm not going to disclose her name, but maybe she would let me share. One of our mutual friends has really been helping me and kind of coaching me for my marathon that's coming up. I just want to give a huge shout out to her because it means so much. And I was really, really stressed when I started my marathon training because this is my first marathon and I didn't really know what I was doing. And she kind of came in and saved the day. She came in and was I'm going to kind of, take over in a really nice way. And it's honestly made such a difference. So I just want to give her a huge shout out if she listens to this.
I know exactly who you're talking about. And yes, there have been so many moments that she has done something so thoughtful for either one of us. And I know that we're both just really thankful for her and for her friendship.
Yeah. So I might cry. I feel I'm going to cry. But yeah, I just want to give her a huge shout out because I think it just means so much. And that individualized support and her just being on my team, on my side has just honestly completely changed the game for me.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. How are you? How's your week?
My week is good. I feel I always say my week is good in that same tone every single time. And I'm going to have to edit it out because I get annoyed with myself that I do that every week. I'm going to share my low first as well. And that's just jean sizing for women. I have such a hard time finding a pair of jeans that fit. And of course I know that I could probably go and get them altered or something like that. But jeans are so expensive nowadays that I don't necessarily want to spend $100+ on the pair of jeans and then $100+ on altering. Also jean fashion changes so much that I'm I just can't keep up with what's in trend and what's not. And it's just complicated. But I feel I spend so much time reading reviews on jeans because I know what size I might typically be. But then you have to read the reviews and people will be this runs true to size, this runs small. And I wish we just had an easier way to shop for clothes. And I think it's just really, really hard to do that. And especially if you're working working through the period recovery journey and you might be experiencing body changes and stuff like that, that like shopping is freaking hard.
It is. There's so much like demand and like reliance on online shopping, but like a size is different at every single store. Like I have a different size and everything. Like I'm pretty sure I have an extra small, a medium, and a large shirt like in
100%. Yeah. Same.
In my closet.
Yeah. And then jean sizes are even more confusing because some stores measure like 25, 26, 27, and then other brands will be like, it's a 00024, switching
or
back
small, medium, large.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how do you keep it straight? Like I saw a pair of pants because I actually tried to shop in person and the lady was like, well, what size are you looking for? And I was like, well, what sizes do you offer here? And she's like, I think this specific style of jeans runs small, medium, large. And I was like, okay, but what about this one? She's like, these ones run true size 22, 20, like that type of thing. And I was like, how on earth are we supposed to keep up with this? Like, it's just so complicated.
So complicated. And then a brand that has like a 28 in a size is different than a 28 in another size.
Yeah. And then somebody in the comments, if you're doing online shopping, is like, this is true to size. And then you get it and you're like, not true to size because I ordered my true size and it doesn't fit. It's so frustrating.
It is. And not, it's even going a tangent, but like, how can your like bra size be like a medium and your shirt be a small? Or like, how's your,
yeah,
the same space from the same brand?
It doesn't make sense. So anyway, for the 1200th week in a row, my low is online shopping. This isn't a bananas episode, but it really does drive me bananas.
We are so spicy this month. I don't know. Guys, we are just over it, just like you are.
Something in the air.
This October weather.
My high, we talk a lot about books on this podcast, but an author that I really like is coming out with a new book. I actually think it's already out. So my husband and I decided that we're both going to read like some of the books in the series together. And we're almost going to do like mini book club. I've read a few of the books already. You don't really have to like read them in order or read them like in a row or anything like that. But I've really enjoyed the ones I have read. So I think like it'll be a good thing for us to kind of do together. And I'm excited that there's a new book.
What series is it?
It's Dan Brown's series, like the Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons and all of that. I've read The Inferno. I've read a couple of the other books and I'm super excited. I don't remember. I think it's like Secret of something or other. I'm not sure the new book, but I'm really excited about it. And so we went to like a used bookstore this past weekend and we picked up a copy of like the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, since those are the first books technically in the series. And we're going to read those.
I love his books. I didn't know he was still writing.
Yeah, I think he took a break for a really long time, or at least that's what the individual said at the bookstore, that like it had been a minute and like everybody's really excited about the new book.
I need to put it on my like very long list of books to like reread again. I was going to try to read Hunger Games again because I haven't read it for a while and there's like going to be a new movie coming out from one of the prequels and then I got distracted with something else, but
always happens. It's so easy with books. There's so many good ones.
Yeah. Oh, I love that for you guys though. That's so exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. On today's episode, we're actually talking about signs your period recovery plan isn't working. So things to look out for if you have started the period recovery journey and you still have yet to get your period back. These are going to be things that you should be on the lookout for that would signal that your period recovery plan isn't what it needs to be to help you get your period back. Reilly, when we're thinking about like HA and low energy availability, and if you've been working on the period recovery process for a little bit of time, how do you know if your body is still in a state of low energy availability, even though you've maybe started adding in more fuel?
I mean, I think the obvious sign, right? First off is like you haven't gotten your period back. But to make it even more confusing, like you can get your period back and still be in a state of low energy availability. And I think that's probably the most challenging part about this journey is it's not really, perfectly mapped out. It's very different for everybody. And there's not like necessarily a concrete timeline on how you can get your period back, right? You can't be like, okay, this week I'm going to do these 5 things. And then in 4 weeks, I'm going to get my period because I implemented these 5 things. That makes it really stressful.
I think you hit a big thing there with the consistency piece, like adding in those 5 things that maybe you've decided are comfortable for you to add to work towards your period recovery. That's really important that you add them and you stay consistent with them. But I think a really difficult piece is recognizing that those 5 things might not be enough and we have to add on top of those 5 things. Like, yes, those were great first steps that you took, but we can't just say that like those 5 things alone are going to be what creates the environment to help you get your period back. You probably need more than just those 5 things if you still haven't gotten your period back, yet you've implemented some changes.
Ooh, yes. I love that you brought that up. In our period recovery program, when we're working one-on-one with athletes, we often have them start at some place and maybe they don't even know it, but we're slowly pushing them to increase more. Because again, like you just said, oftentimes we implement like 1 or 2 changes and we think that's going to be enough. For example, if you're not doing any recovery fuel after training, implementing something, right? Like it doesn't matter necessarily what, but just implementing something, maybe something that's 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrates is a wonderful first step. And that might feel like a really, really big change for you, and it could be, but that isn't going to be enough. So yes, you've implemented a positive change. You've incorporated more carbohydrates, but that's not going to be enough to tell your body that it's safe and to give it adequate fuel.
That consistency piece of keeping that post-workout fuel or whatever change it is that you've made is, yes, very important. And I think that's where a lot of athletes sometimes get hung up, is that they think that that should be sufficient because in comparison to what they were doing before, once we've kind of made several changes and we've maybe worked up to a more sufficient post-workout or post-training snack, and they're like, why isn't it back yet? Because I'm doing something that feels so drastically different from what I was doing before. So in their mind, they think it should be back. And in reality, like we underestimate what our body actually needs. Something that we say like so often is like, we can't just put somebody into like a single bucket when it comes to period recovery. We have to think about fueling you as a person, fueling you as an athlete, and correcting the deficiency of low energy availability. And maybe we just filled one of those buckets with increasing our post-training snack, and we still have other areas that like we have to give attention to in order to get your period back. So I think that that's such a big thing with so many athletes, is like that experience of both consistency and wanting that to be enough, when in reality, we still need potentially a little bit more. Like just adding a snack probably isn't enough to help get your period back.
And I think that is really hard for a lot of people to grasp. And that can be really, really mentally challenging, because if you've been implementing the changes, you've been adding in some things and you haven't seen any cervical mucus, any PMS symptoms, your labs haven't changed, and it's been 2 to 3 months, it really shows that what you're doing is not enough. And that can be really hard to hear sometimes.
Very hard to hear, especially because fueling with more sometimes is uncomfortable, maybe both like physically and mentally uncomfortable. It's challenging. If someone is using more fuel throughout their day, why could their cycle still not be back if we have like what would seem like an adequate amount of energy coming in to match like the training load?
So 2 things. Again, it still might just not be enough energy. Like we just kind of talked about that, and you probably don't realize how much fuel you need. So I think that's the first one. If you are, hitting your energy goals, we need to look at nutrient timing, because we have 3 macronutrients. They all provide energy and they all have different roles within the body. And we have to make sure that the macronutrient that our body is utilizing is available at the time that it needs to. So you might be a really busy athlete. You might be at school all day or at work all day, and a large amount of your energy intake is happening at night. But if you train in the morning, that energy might not be available for you to utilize because you're consuming it, most of it, at night.
100%. We see this very often in period recovery with the athletes that we work with. I think the other thing that we could add to this too would be like nutrient balance and potentially getting enough energy, but it's not, again, kind of the right balance of nutrients, just like Reilly alluded to with timing of things and having the right types of fuel. But if we're getting enough energy, but we're only using, protein and carbohydrate, and we've completely neglected fat, we need to kind of revisit where that energy is actually coming from and maybe make some adjustments with the balance of things and the timing of things.
A huge mistake that I see, and Jenna, I don't know if you see this too, but especially in the beginning when people are kind of navigating this on their own, is they hear, I need to increase my energy intake. I need to increase my energy intake. I need to possibly increase my weight. And they think, okay, I'm going to increase my weight by increasing lean mass. So I'm going to increase my protein. And if you're eating 200 grams of protein and 150 grams of carbohydrates, I'm not shocked that you don't have your period. Just being real. I feel like we're doing some tough love today, but the calories might be there, but the nutrient availability is not going to be.
I think that kind of ties into my next question about like healthy eating, because a lot of times people will be like, I just need to clean up my fueling patterns in order to get my period back. So can this idea of air quotes healthy eating actually hold someone back in recovery?
Definitely. I hear this a lot. Just eat more plants, or if you cut out gluten and dairy. I feel like gluten and dairy is a very, very common one. But if you cut out these nutrients, if you just clean up your diet, your hormones will probably balance out and you'll get your period back. And this is not a What Drives Us Bananas episode, so I'm not going to go down that route. But I do think this idea of healthy eating, with air quotes, healthy eating, holds a lot of people back, because what is healthy for you is going to look different from what is healthy from your friends or your family. And if you don't have your period, I don't care how clean clean your food is, with air quotes again, you're not eating healthy.
I also think that it's incredibly misleading to tell someone that they should just, clean up or eat healthier, eat more plants, whatever it is, cut out dairy, cut out gluten, because there's not a lot of guidance given for like a very like broad generalization of that, of trying to get your period back. Like we need more guidance when it comes to nutrition and helping you get your period back. It's way too vague. It's way too general.
Yes. And it's not just like one thing or another, or like you don't just only need to eat carbohydrates and you don't need to eat vegetables. I was actually thinking about this morning because a lot of athletes, if they listen to this podcast, it's called the Eat More Carbs Podcast, right? Like we want you to eat more carbohydrates because most athletes are not eating enough carbohydrates. But that doesn't mean like stop eating vegetables and fruits. It's not one or the other. And I think too often we're doing that, especially on social media, where we're like demonizing one specific nutrient or one food group. And that's not what we're saying, right? We're not saying don't eat your fruits and vegetables. You need to eat your fruits and vegetables as an athlete, but you also need to eat your carbohydrates.
When it comes to looking at training, which is something that we do with our athletes, we're looking at, are we having recovery days in our period recovery journey? What if someone is training less, but they still don't have a period?
I think it really depends on the situation. A common thing that I see, and it may or may not apply to you if you're listening to this, oftentimes when you're cutting exercise, you're also going to be cutting fuel, and it might be unintentional. But I do think that is why I don't love the like all in or all or nothing approach, because it can sometimes be really challenging to cut out exercise and then increase your fueling. But that's just my personal and maybe my professional opinion.
No, 100%. I agree with you. Like resting and recovery is so important for all athletes, but especially can be important for period recovery athletes to allow for a day for your body to recover from all of the training that you're doing. But if your fueling all of a sudden decreases because you're training less, then we're actually like doing a disservice. And that's one of the reasons why like RBSN is so passionate about like keeping you training during your period recovery journey, because we don't want you to get to the point where like we've dropped intake so low because you're like, I'm not training anymore. And then we have even more of a deficit to kind of work through to get your period back.
Yeah. We actually had a group call in the period recovery community earlier this week. One of the athletes in there who's a runner was talking about how stressful it was because she had stopped running, how stressful it was for her to increase her fueling. And she was also missing the social component of like going to a run club and things like that. So she was actually shocked when I said like a goal for you this week is to go to run club. Like obviously we need to make sure that we're fueling around the running, but it was more motivation, I think, for her to like actually fuel with energy because she kind of felt like she had a purpose. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think that definitely makes sense. I think that a lot of times we hear that we have to completely remove exercise in order to get our period back, and that's not always the case. I'm not saying that we should all of a sudden like drastically increase our training if we're in the period recovery process either, but I think it's very dependent on the person, and we have to like keep all of those components in mind, like this individual in the period recovery community who is experiencing like increased stress and like the lack of motivation for fueling because we'd removed running completely. So all of those things are important when it comes to looking at like whether or not your period recovery approach to training adaptations or to training modifications are maybe too aggressive for keeping your like mental health like in a good place too, because it does offer a lot of like stress relief. So like helping with those sides of things too. What are maybe some subtle signs that we can see like perhaps physically that your plan isn't enough in period recovery and you don't even realize it?
So biggest thing I think is like, do you have cervical mucus? And like if you've had cervical mucus for 8 months and you're not seeing changes in it, you probably need to push a little bit harder. So I think that's the first one. I feel like I see a lot of the times athletes reporting that they're no longer cold. That's a big one. And you might not even realize that you're cold. I feel like a lot of these symptoms, like people don't even realize that they're going through them or they have them until they don't have them. So lack of energy, like I just said, being cold, hair, like losing hair. That's a huge one. Having like weaker nails. Also one. What am I missing?
Probably ongoing like GI bloating and discomfort in your gut. I would say would be another big one. Decreased workout performance for sure. And then a last one I would probably add would be like continued obsessive thoughts around like fueling and food.
Yes. Adding one on too is like poor recovery.
Yeah. Just like we have talked about so many times, I think that people drastically underestimate the power of fuel and how much better you can actually recover from training in order to be prepared for your next training session. Energy during workouts, improved recovery are ones that are almost hard to recognize that you don't even have because you might have not even experienced what that means in the first place. So you might be like, oh, my energy during my training is fine, or my recovery is perfectly fine. I don't have any issues with that. But my challenge would then be like, can we increase something and see if it does change?
Even like something manifesting like, you're not able to complete like like workouts later in the week, or you're not able to lift as much later in the week or things like that, because again, your recovery is poor, and that just might not be a connection that you're making because you're like, I'm fine. I feel fine after my workouts, but were you able to actually advance in your workouts or hit the goals within your training?
Yeah, exactly. We underestimate how much of an impact fueling can make on those types of things.
We got some tough love for everybody today.
It's important that we talk about this though, because if you are working through the period recovery journey and you haven't seen your period come back yet, there is a chance that what you're doing just isn't enough, which is a hard thing to hear. It's a hard one to have a conversation with yourself about being at the point that we potentially need to do more, because it can sometimes be uncomfortable. We have a wide range of resources for you available through RBSN if you are working through period recovery and you're feeling a little bit stuck. As always, you can reach out to Reilly and I if you do have questions, or you can leave them in the comments of this podcast. You can find Reilly online at easy.sports.nutrition, and you can find me at jenna.fisher.nutrition. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please make sure you rate, subscribe, and review. And as always, remember to eat more carbs.